Hello, Tennessee, and welcome to tonight's broadcast. Thank you for joining us. Back in May, Representative John Rose was on our show, and he shared all about his decision not to run for Congress again. Well, his announcement has already attracted some potential replacements. One of those potential replacements is retired Marine Corps Sergeant Major Jon Henry. Sergeant Major Jon Henry served 27 years and is a veteran of Desert Storm and multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. He now wants to serve the citizens of the 6th District on the political battlefield as a leader representing their interest and protecting their rights. He is our guest for tonight, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation. But first, it's time for another Trump update. Unless you've been living under a rock, you know that we bombed Iran's nuclear facilities on Saturday. Bombing Iran was in many ways way overdue, 40 plus years overdue. Beginning with the hostage crisis in 1979, the Beirut bombing in 1983 by Hezbollah, an Iranian proxy, and more recently, Iranian IEDs used against our troops in Iraq. Iran has long been the leading sponsor of state-sponsored Islamic-inspired terrorism. So for those reasons, I'm fine with taking them out. However, there is a problem with this strike, and this is my opinion. The Constitution states that only Congress can declare war. And yes, I understand he didn't declare war. President Trump did not declare war. Many point to the War Powers Act of 1973, but Congress cannot delegate a power to another branch, also my opinion, although the WPA has been upheld in court. But think about it for a minute, that does defeat the purpose of separation of powers. The founders were very leery of one person deciding on whether or not to go to war. War, by the way, was defined as violence directed by a sovereign government against opposition. No mention of duration or type of attack. Anything offensive was war and required a declaration by Congress. A president was allowed to order defensive measures on his own. You don't need that. You don't need anything from Congress to have the military defend itself. Anything offensive required Congress. So while I'm personally okay with taking out Iranian nukes, I'm not okay with, in my opinion, violating the Constitution. We need to do this with Iran. Let's do it the right way. And we're probably going to have to deal with them more. I understand there's supposedly a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. We'll see how that holds out. But if we have to do further things, I hope we do it the right way. Another issue that I'm concerned about is the threat of sleeper cells after years of Biden's open border. Are we ready for that? And are we ready to finally address that Iran is a threat because of Islam and that Islamic doctrine is incompatible with civilization in general and our Constitution in particular? Are we going to finally train our military, our law enforcement, and others in government at all levels about this threat? Hope so before it's too late. Now to our guest, Sergeant Major Jonathan S. Henry. He enlisted in the Marine Corps and attended recruit training in January 1990 at Parris Island, South Carolina. He deployed to the Persian Gulf in support of Operation Desert Shield/Desert Storm. He took part in Operation Intimate Thunder in the evacuation of the U.S. Embassy in Somalia. As a gunnery sergeant, he deployed from August 2005 to March 2006 in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom in Al-Anbar province, one of the worst places to be in Iraq at that time. He was promoted to first sergeant in 2006. He deployed to Iraq, again in support of OIF from February 2007 until February 2008. In January 2009, he made first sergeant and he attended the Navy Senior Enlisted Academy in Newport, Rhode Island, and was the honor graduate. He also attended the Senior Enlisted Professional Military Education Center in Quantico, Virginia. And in 2012, now a sergeant major, he deployed with Operation Enduring Freedom. Sergeant Major Henry was later selected as one of 2 enlisted Marines to ever attend the Command and Staff College in Quantico, Virginia, earning a master's degree in military studies. He retired from active duty in October 2017. He is married to the former Renee Lynn Smith. They have 2 children, Christian and Jonathan, and a grandson, Colton. Along with other degrees, he has a master's in public administration and is in the process of completing his PhD at Johnson University. His personal awards include the Bronze Star, Meritorious Service Medal, Combat Action Ribbon, just to name a few. He currently works for Bridgestone, where he teaches organizational leadership to mid and upper level leaders. I'm sorry. Thank you for joining us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm so grateful to be here with you. This is a great opportunity.
Well, it's good to have you. And I had to shorten your bio. There's a whole lot more on there, just so everybody knows. But 27 years, the Marine Corps got their money's worth. Let's just put it that way.
I agree 100%. Absolutely.
So I see from your website that you're a strong supporter of President Trump, and I am a Trump supporter. I have my issues, but I am a Trump supporter. What are your thoughts on the attack on Iran?
Well, I'm glad you asked that right off the bat. Being a military man, 22 years, you understand that there's so much that goes on, right? It's not just a haphazard bombing of Iran. This has been going on, you just said in your intro, for decades. And you and I both know from experience the human intel it takes for something like this to happen. And this has been going on and on and on. So you could probably imagine just what it took for this decision to be made, for them to know exactly what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, who was going to be involved in it, what civilian casualties. And so the precise way it was done, when it was done, was absolutely incredible. And we all know that three people before Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, President Barack Obama, and then President Joe Biden, all three said when they were elected they'd bomb Iran to make sure they didn't get nuclear capabilities. And only until now have we seen action. So as you said earlier, action was time, and we know for a fact two things had to happen. One, Iran could not get a nuclear weapon. And number two, we know for sure that if they continued to debt to America, sooner or later, by the examples you just gave, it was gonna escalate to something larger. And so for me, the timing was impeccable. It was great. Kept everybody back on their heels, very precise. And I believe now that we can probably sit back, and I know a lot of people in the Middle East now know that Iran does not have that capabilities for now, right, that we can all sleep a little safer. That's for sure.
Right. Yeah, as long as the mullahs are in charge, it's going to be a problem. I hope our intel was good. Obviously, it was good as far as the mission goes, in terms of carrying it out. Everything was done perfectly in that regard. I just I do have my concerns on that, but way past due in many, many ways. I'm concerned going forward, especially going with all of them that may be over here from the 4 years of Biden. And you mentioned the other presidents said they were going to bomb Iran. Well, they did bomb Iran. They bombed them with millions of dollars. That's what they bombed them with, was millions of dollars, and that's part of the problem, no doubt. So, well, hey, I know it's early on in the campaign. Matter of fact, you're the only official candidate in this race. But how's it going so far?
Well, we're 1,000 miles an hour. We're a small campaign. I've got a great team that's assembled. They have great specialties, and so we're going 1,000 miles an hour, making sure that we shake as many hands as early on as we can. Obviously, we'll do our best to get as many people as possible to log on our website, henryforcongress.com, to go and visit us there, see who we are. We will be the outsider. I'm not a politician, never have been a politician. I'm a Marine who came home and thought I'd live a quiet life, and well, that's not going to happen. I'm a leader by heart, and I think at this time we need someone like that. So I'm showing that at every stop we go to. I'm shaking everyone's hand. I'm trying to see as many people. If I find two people together, I want to stop and talk to them about an average person who served his time and is ready to serve his country. And that's what it's about. So that's our ongoing message. I'm grateful for the team that we've assembled, and I think we'll make a great charge at this. And I think in the end, people will see through the cloud of money and things of that nature and select the right candidate, and I think I'll be that person.
Well, now, were there some specific things that prompted you to run?
Yes, sir, there was. And I've said it. I'm a little bit of a C-SPAN nerd. I love to watch actual Congress in session, Senate in session. And it's just, to me, we just say over and over again, and Dave, you and I probably said, I just wish a normal person would run for office. Why does it have to be a multimillionaire? Why does it have to be a governor or a congressman? Why does it have to be all these lawyers? Why are so many lawyers going to DC? And so for me, I'm like, listen, I can just talk about it, or I can step up to the plate and take a swing. And that's what we're doing. I mean, I've been in leadership, and when you're a young NCO just getting in the military, I've been in leadership since 1992, leading other Marines, probably before that. And that's what my thing is, leadership. So why keep talking about the average person and not throw my hat in and make this happen? So that's really been the fire in my belly to make this is, hey, I'm an action guy. Let's move toward action. Let's be that average person that can win this district seat. And so that's where we're at. And that's the main reason, talking with friends, they want the same thing. Can we get an average person who's not a political hack jumping in here and running for this seat? So that's the support we're looking for, is those people that want that change.
And I think there's a lot of them, because we are all tired of professional politicians. Unfortunately, for a lot of these positions, it just seems you have to almost be independently wealthy way too many times. But now, hey, there are exceptions to that. And, it's hard to beat a good door knocking campaign. It really is. And of course, the thing about this is you're not going up against an incumbent. Right now, you're the only one in the race. There's talk of Johnny Garrett, lawyer, former rep, and then I've heard also Van Hillary. Those are names I've heard mentioned, but you're the only one officially in the race. It's probably, getting an early start's probably not a bad thing.
Well, you have to. If you don't have millions of dollars, you just said, you jump in early and you try to see more people, you try to drive more miles, you try to do the hard work early and try to make that gap up, because we know they're all going to jump in with all this money. Yep. And sadly, that's what it takes nowadays is the person that raises the most money wins. But President Trump showed that that's not the case. He's been outspent by a number of candidates and won. And so that's what we're running on. That's our character, who we are, who we think Tennessee wants to represent them. When you look up on Capitol Hill, is that person like you? Is he someone that you want to be, for in my case, someone you want to represent you? And that's what we're running on, those true hardworking characteristics.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that money is used to buy name recognition. So, I mean, by an early start, you can counter the need of that to some degree. And so, I hope it goes well for you. And this is a campaign I'll kind of be watching, even though I'm not in your district, because, being former enlisted military, I kind of I lean towards enlisted military versus lawyers. Let's put it that way. So, and I have an overall low opinion of lawyers. They're one of those professions that there are some good ones, but that's the exception rather than a rule.
You can't say any better. You know what it takes. And when you're E1 and you're working your way up, it's hard work, right? We get the commander's intent. We take that intent. We execute. I've been executing foreign policy for the last 27 years of my life. Well, for 27 years. I've been out a while now, but it's time to sit back and look at where our foreign policy's got us, and then, step up to the plate and help make that foreign policy. So I know what it means to execute foreign policy. Now let's get in there and let's make foreign policy. Let's be part of the team that moves forward into that. And there's a number of congressmen up there that I really want to emulate in their tenacity and they won't back down. And I look forward to joining that caucus, that military caucus, and looking at that foreign policy. Because let's be honest, Tennessee's one of those states where a lot of young people serve, young men and women serve their country, and they need a representative that knows what it's like to chew that same dirt as you and I would say, right?
Yeah. Who are some of the people on the Hill that you think are worth emulating? It's got to be a fairly small list, but let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, I'll leave it with one. That's Eli Crane. He's got a big stake in this border. I mean, he's right there in Arizona. They tried to get him out of there. He was a very staunch advocate. Hey, stop this flow across the border. It's affecting my people.
Right.
And this position's a representative. He represents his people. I've seen a number of his interviews where they tried to get him out, but he wouldn't back down. And he won his reelection overwhelmingly because he had convictions. And I think that's where you and I come from as enlisted service members. When you get a conviction, you stick with it. And I think Eli, from what I've seen from him, I mean, he's not a committee chairman because he's not part of the establishment. He'll tell you that.
Right.
And so that's just one person that comes to the top of my mind that I've seen interviews in. I really want to get to know people like him. But more importantly, I want that military caucus to grow. These bills are signed off by these high profile politicians and so forth. How about a bill that has to go through a military caucus in order to be gleaned before it moves forward? That's a strong character that you'd have to go through in order to get those bills passed without excessive spending and hawkish type verbiage when we are the ones that execute that orders for so many years. That's important for me, to be honest with you, Dave.
Absolutely. So on your site, you listed some issues, and we're going to talk about each one of them. We actually have a slide that goes along with them. But the first one you listed was economy. So let's hear your ideas and concerns on that.
Yes, sir. Well, I don't want to get too long on this, but I will hit a little bit. So I'm from a very small rural county. The 6th district is the most rural district in Tennessee with 19 counties.
Oh, wow.
And so this means a lot to me. The closest city to me is Carthage, Tennessee. And at that time, Dave, back in the 80s, we had a shirt factory, a sock factory. We even had a clock factory, brother, a clock factory.
Wow.
NAFTA came down, and it literally gutted us. No more anything. It all went overseas. All your socks, all your T-shirts are made in Vietnam or China or whatever, and it gutted our small town, right? Well, our towns are still. You ask somebody, would you rather work for minimum wage in your town or minimum wage in Nashville, Tennessee?
Right.
They don't have to. But we have nothing now. I mean, we have a few factories left, sure, the big ones, but those small factories that were owned, they're gone. And so we know right now with this economy, people shouldn't have to choose whether they're buying groceries or gas. It's a hard economy right now. And so the idea is to get in there again, and I want to learn more from people on this issue. And for me, I was personally affected. My family was personally affected. Now, my father was a farmer his whole life, and he went through the hardest time of farming in the 70s and 80s, and somehow he survived. But a lot of farmers didn't. They had to go to town to work. And when NAFTA gutted those businesses, then they're off to Nashville. So they've been farming their whole life. There's no businesses in town to go to, so now they're driving to Nashville, and it's still happening today. So what can we do to help President Trump bring those jobs back? And there's other presidents that would say, we'll never bring them back. But here we are with these coming into Tennessee, as a matter of fact, a number of businesses coming from overseas back to Tennessee. My job is to help bring some of those jobs back. Some of those jobs we know, they may not be the highest paying job, but a lot of us, we don't need to judge others, right? You said earlier, wealth is sometimes for me, you talk about a multimillionaire. I'll never be a multimillionaire, and I'm fine with that. My father always said he's a very poor farmer. It's not the money you make, it's the money you spend that keeps you above water, right? And so don't tell someone minimum wage in Nashville is better than minimum wage in your hometown. My goodness, you want to drive an hour in that traffic in Nashville? But anyway, that's where we're at. But to your point on the economy, and you had it there, and I hope everybody will go to the website and read what we're talking about, is to help pass legislation to bring some relief in. And I want to learn what that relief would be. I want to vote on that side, give some relief to those folks, as you see there on the screen. This is important. We have to make sure, and it's coming up, and you know it, that big tax cut. We demonize a lot of businesses that we say, well, the millionaires get a tax cut. Well, Dave, if you and I own a business and we done made $1 million and we got a tax cut, what would we do with that money? We'd put it right back in that business. Yep. We'd buy better equipment. We'd try to hire more people. And that's the thing. Small businesses are still the blood of our economy. They're the lifeline of our economy. So to help those small business owners, sure, you say they're millionaires, but can you imagine what the cost is for them right now? They're not millionaires when it's over with. So we want to get those tax cuts pushed forward. I'm all in favor of that. I know they want to demonize it, but I'm all about tax cuts for everyone. Sure, billionaires will get the tax cuts. I got it. But I'm worried about small rural America. Those people that own grocery stores still, those people that have businesses here, they need those tax cuts as well. And we need to make those permanent, put them in the law, and move that forward. That's one of our big things.
Yeah. Well, tax cuts are definitely needed. And when people are against tax cuts, I'm like, first off, why does the government feel it's entitled to it? And I don't really care if somebody that's filthy rich gets a little more. And, they're going to get more because they already pay more. They pay a higher percentage. So the further you go up the food chain, in most cases, they're paying a higher percentage. So when they have a tax cut, hey, well, guess what? Yeah, they're going to get more back. It's called math, and a lot of people don't understand that. But especially, in our mind, well, somebody who runs a small business or even a medium business, and they make several $100,000. So the average person, well, that guy's rich, but he's not rich. And oh, by the way, if he can't make that, if he can't make something, he's not in business for it to be a charity, and he's employing other people. So, I mean, I'm all for cutting taxes, cutting waste, cutting most of the garbage our government does at all levels, to be honest with you.
Well said, Dave. Well said. Now, you and I both know in the big organizations, right, we heap taxes on them. Who actually pays those taxes, Dave?
Oh, we do. They pass it on. They pass it on to the consumer every time.
Right. You know it, and I know it. But I don't know why it's got to be such hard on the economical front to understand that. If I have $1 billion business and the government's going to put more regulations or restrictions on me, I'm passing that off to the consumer. Yep. It's basic economics. So I'm all about the tax cuts because it reaches you and I. And that's the thing you'll never hear the other side talk about is, but what about the people that make $75,000 a year? Will they feel it? Absolutely. Tax cuts. Would anybody just go look at your pay stub right now that still gets pay stub, electronic or otherwise, and look what your federal income tax withheld is? I mean, it is incredible, brother, what individual people pay to just make minimum wage. It's hard to believe. And that's why, again, I'm for that. No tax on tips. I'm all about that. Let's get a little break on overtime. I have members in my family that have worked in factories for 30 years. Let's give them a little bit of a break, please. Let's do that. So I'm with you, Dave. Thanks for saying that's very, very clear.
Immigration. That's a huge issue. Let me hear you on immigration. I think I know where you're going to be, but let's hear it.
Well, this probably goes back to you and I, our roots both, and anybody out there, and it's about accountability, right? We know that. We know now in retrospect that those 4 years was all on purpose.
Yep.
Open the borders, and it was on purpose. But you'd hear the Democrats yell, it's not on purpose. It's not on purpose. It's all about the votes, and it's all about the money. We just don't get any follow-up on that. And as you see the issues on the screen, it's very imperative that we understand that every year our government can only let so many people in per year. We know this. Why? Well, we've got to make sure infrastructure's in place.
Right.
Whatever the number may be, we got to make sure we have facilities. We have to make sure that we have water, sewage, schools. Our schools are so burdened right now, and we all know it. Again, it was on purpose. It was manufactured by the Democrats. Very clear now looking in retrospect. And now, and again on purpose, let's see what President Trump can do with that. And so here we are. President Trump's trying his best to make a difference. Just deport the people and then stand in line. Why would we do that to all these people that have been trying to come to our country for literally sometimes decades to get citizenship, and all of a sudden they get pushed to the back because somebody comes across the border? Again, it's all about accountability, Dave. I want to continue to say that in most all these policies here. You mentioned spending when we said the economy. It's about accountability. I mean, did the bills that were passed that cost trillions of dollars in the last 4 years, did we have tax cuts on that, or did we finance green projects across the border with no accountability? We understand that now, Dave. Looking back in retrospect, it's sad that it happened, but we've got to work our way through it and get as many people out and then welcome them back in through our process is the way it's supposed to work. And that's what I support on immigration. Very clear, very to the point. It's all about accountability.
Yeah. I'm all for mass deportation as much as we can do it. And I think if you came over here illegally, you lost all right to come here legally, at least for 10 years. And like you said, you mentioned the infrastructure. That's got to be matched up. Nobody is born in another country with a right to come here. I'm sorry, you're not. And, I'm not per se against immigration in general, but hey, I'd like to see a stop put on it for a while. I'd like to just see nobody's coming in for 10 years until we get this unscrewed, because that's where we're at. And that's just my opinion. I don't necessarily expect you to agree with that, but I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, it is, Dave. And let's be very honest. Let's be very clear on that. We know that our immigration policy is correct, and we got to stop the way people use words. Right? We say, well, oh, we're a nation of immigrants. No, Dave, we're not We're not a nation of immigrants. We are a nation of citizens.
Right.
We're all citizens, born citizens. The ones that come over are not citizens. They're illegal. The word illegal, accountability, illegal immigrants. Let's make sure that we don't mix words on that. You and I are citizens. Those that come over the correct way and go through our process, they're citizens. And so we are a nation of citizens and not of immigrants. And you hear Democrats say that all the time. So I just wanted to clear that up right now, that illegal immigrants are illegal. Citizens are not illegal. I appreciate that.
Historically, when the immigrants came over, they had to show that they could support themselves, or that somebody in the country would be responsible for them. They didn't come over here just carte blanche and, oh, I'm here and now I get to sign up on this, that, and the other. No, they had to show they could support themselves, or that somebody would be responsible for them. And they came here wanting to assimilate, wanting to be Americans, not wanting to be a hyphenated American here. And I think that's a problem, because that's led to, in other countries, and it's to this country to a great degree, this whole balkanization, where you have all these hyphenated Americans. And that's a problem. That's a problem. It's like, and I'm not a huge Teddy Roosevelt fan, but he did say something I definitely agree with. You're either American or you're not. There's no such thing as a hyphenated American. That's a paraphrase. And bottom line, yeah, you're coming here to be an American of whatever background, but you're coming here to assimilate. And if you're not coming here to assimilate, you don't need to come here.
Very good point. Mark Levin hit very good. It's all about borders, language, and culture, right? Very clear. Each one of those. I'm not a Scottish American. I'm not an Irish American, even though it might be part of my heritage. I am American, period. And those that want to hyphenate them want to divide us. You and I both see that, right, Dave? If you are a Scottish American, if you are an African American, if you are a Colombian American, you're separating what you just said, and there's a purpose behind it. Again, words mean something, and that means something, and they know it does, and that's why they hyphenate those things. Again, appreciate you bringing that up, Dave.
Absolutely. Education. Now, education to a great degree is generally a state issue. Now, it's become a federal issue because of the Department of Education, which was created, I think, in 1979 under Carter. Education's gotten just steadily worse since we've had the Department of Education. Trump is talking about defunding it. I'm not sure where we stand in that whole process. But let's hear what your thoughts on education.
Yeah. So we know that education was never supposed to be a government agency. We're never supposed to be a Department of Education, right? It's another government grab. Now, again, here I go with my C-SPAN nerd days. So I remember when Senator Kennedy and Senator McCain in the early 2000s were going back and forth. It's all about the bill just went out of my mind. No child left behind. No child left behind. No. And here we are, 25 years later, and I think every child's left behind, aren't they, Dave?
Pretty much.
What a grab, these testings and things. And the thing is, and I've been listening over the last week, because I'm honest with you, I need to get smart on this. There was another bill that was passed in 2014 after No Child Left Behind for more of testing, for more of this supposedly accountability. Now, I've got teachers in my family. I've got a stepsister that graduated after 30 years in education. We've got good friends that retired 30 years education. When they had the ability those years ago to be able to educate children, to be able to take math and reading and arithmetic and make sure that was priority. But they just talk about testing just overwhelming them in everything they do. How important was that? And so it definitely wasn't No Child Left Behind. It just, they would say is they had to lower their standards to make sure that everybody passed the test. And you've seen a number of times where teachers were put in a corner and they had to, well, for lack of better terms, cheat. And you saw a number of times where teachers would have to take tests for students, and I'll look that up and make sure that we're on course here, and they were caught cheating to make sure that the scores were up where they were supposed to be. And Dave, you know that's not the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And that's where we're at right now. We need to do something. And I will say, people say, well, education needs to go back to the states, needs to go back to the states. Okay. Now, when it comes back to Tennessee, do we want our education department run out of Nashville or Memphis? So that's something else that we need to look at. If it comes back to Tennessee, who's going to be running it? If it's our good red-blooded Tennesseans, I'm all about it. But if it's the same thing we get out of D.C., we have to pause. And I look forward to being your congressman to help oversee that and work with the state representatives, the state senate, the governor, to make sure that happens. We need good people, former teachers, by the way, not just people that have some type of political degree overseeing this, but we need true teachers who are in charge and overseeing this so it can be done the right way. Yeah. I firmly believe that.
Well, the more federal government involvement we've had over the years, the worse things have gotten. So I do agree that it needs to go back to the states. Now, having said that, some of the people that are in our state are probably not much better than D.C. I mean, I'm not impressed with our governor. I'm not impressed with our legislature. And the fact is that they have pushed a lot of for instance, Common Core. That was probably what you're mentioning there for 2014. Well, Tennessee basically rebranded it, and it was in some ways worse. And you have these big textbook companies. And granted, they're not using textbooks as much as they were. They're using a lot of online programs, but it's still kind of pushed from these left-wing, from a left-wing view, where they're really about indoctrinating our kids more than they are teaching our kids. But I think it has to be the states, but the parents have to be involved. The counties have to have, they definitely have to have more of a voice in what they do. And I don't know, it's not going to be an overnight fix. I do think less federal involvement is better, even if that ends up just being, okay, federal block grants without any real strings to attached to them. That's the problem. It's usually not strings; it's ropes or chains, and so that's been part of the problem. But I don't know exactly how to fix this, because I don't trust. I don't see a lot of people at our state level to trust either. I trust them. I would still rather have it at the state level, because at least there's a chance in one of the 50 states that somebody can get a good program going. But I don't know. I'm not impressed with our state government either. I'll just leave it at that.
That's a very good point, and I want to just push that a little further. Probably when you and I both were in high school, we learned welding. If we took ag, it was called ag, but it was really shop. We learned about fixing vehicles. We learned about a number of things that we were able to do and carry on with that, right? Whether there's a plumbing class, electrical class, or just a little welding class. I did all those things in high school. What have we done? We've taken it all out.
Yep.
Just so we can make sure we implement that testing you were talking about. We have to get back to basic education, right? I know that a couple of administrations ago, they took and federalized all of our college grants, right? And we saw that in a number of areas. We need to advocate for the trades.
Absolutely.
And I've told people, I was in Warren County the other night, and I talked to a young man they had won the trades, and they won for the state, and we're going to nationals in some of the trades. And I was like, good gracious, you all are really on the money. And he was proud of his team, doing a great job. And I want to bring that back to our schools. Why can't a young person learn electricity in school just like we used to, and then go out and start his own business? Why can't a plumber do the same thing? Why do we have to fall underneath another organization? Or why do we have to go to college and be burdened by college debt, which, well, let's not get too far into the weeds there, because we'll start getting to Harvard and a few other places. We probably don't need to do that. But the point is, college should not be free. College is like anything else, should be earned. So many people, I pay off my college. I'm a lifelong learner, as you mentioned before. I'm still learning after all these years. And We need to make sure it's merit-based. We don't need to do like we've done so much and bring those standards down.
Right.
It's not a 4.62 GPA. It's a 4.0 GPA. But I see they've changed that as well after attending a few high school graduations. So it seems like we just keep moving the goalposts when it comes to education. I believe in merit-based scholarships. I believe in merit-based degrees, not handout degrees. Or we need degrees that help us learn. And I think we need to move back toward that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we definitely need the trades, and that'll help with the what we were talking about earlier as far as the economy. Whether you're bringing businesses from other countries here, which quite honestly, I'd rather see American-made businesses relocate to Tennessee or start up from Tennessee. But in order to do that, it all comes back to education. You have to have that. If you're going to have a good economy, you got to have an educated force to do it.
That's right. And let's hit the elephant in the room on this one. Our teachers need a good pay, right? You and I have seen before where teachers have to buy some of their own school supplies because they're underfunded. And sometimes that means pulling from their spouse's pay to buy those supplies or getting a second job. I don't know how many teachers I've talked to have, just side jobs, but in order to make ends meet, and they have such great hearts. Teachers are big-hearted people. I just told you I have a stepsister who retired after 30 years in education. And they have such huge hearts. So why would they have to work a second job, or why would they have to barely make it by? We need to make sure we have our teachers have a fair pay. I mean, that goes with EMT and the people we had talked about before. These people, these first responders, these teachers, they need fair pay. And we need to make sure we prioritize that.
Okay. Now here's I guess the first social issue we're going to hit is life. You're pro-life. Let's talk about that.
Well, there's a few things, and I'll talk about both sides of the coin. First off, obviously as a father, and I have 2 children, a beautiful daughter. I have a great son. Now, again, Dave, you're going to be blown away by this. My son is in the Air Force, and you're thinking, what? He finished his time. He finished a 2-year degree over here.
Well, he had 18 years of the Marine Corps before he grew up, right? He'd already did 18 years, so he's like, I'm not doing any more time in the Marine Corps. That's what he said, right?
You're feeding the fire, Big Dave. What's the deal, man? So he we got out of the Corps. He was obviously born and raised in the Corps. He was born at Camp Pendleton over there at Balboa in San Diego, and he served as, again, I say served because he saw me like his mother and his sister running off to deployments. And we got out of the military, and we built our own home from scratch, from the footers up to the rooftop, and I worked him hard. And he went to college here at Cumberland University here in Lebanon. He finished 2 years. He said, Dad, I'm joining the military. I said, great. And of course, Dave, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is he going to Parris Island or is he going to San Diego, right? So he goes, I leave him alone. He goes off to Nashville. He goes to MEPS. He comes back and he goes, I signed up. I said, well, great. Let me see. Where'd you join? You going to Parris Island or San Diego? He goes, oh, neither one of those. I said, excuse me? His mom grabbed the paperwork and, oh, your dad's going to kill you. That joker joined the Air Force. I'm like, what in the world, bro? I mean, come on now. So he's an F-35 mechanic, and he's changing jobs. He's moving in OSs. He's going to be a contractor that works in between the Air Force and obviously the civilian side of it. So he's a smart guy. He's like his mom. So is his daughter. Those are smart, 2 smart children that took off their mother, and I'm so proud of them. But I'll be honest with you, when it comes to abortion, it's hard for me because we only see one side of the story, right? We hear, again, words mean something. Women's health care, women's health care, women's health care. But we don't hear about human health care. We don't hear about a child in a womb. And really, it's hard to imagine that we wouldn't want every expectant mother to have an ultrasound, right? There's a program out there that offers ultrasounds. It's a nonprofit organization where they want every woman that is expecting a child to have an ultrasound to see that baby before they make that decision. I am so pro-life. Life begins at conception. We all know that. It's a scientific fact. Even though science shouldn't get in the way of a good story for Democrats, it's all about life. And the sad thing that I'll tell you, Dave, that you and I'll never see, and probably you'll never hear anyone talk about this, is that 18-year-old girl that had to make that decision. She was way down. My whole life's ahead of me. I got pregnant, and I have to make this decision. And she did. She made the decision to abort a child. But we never follow up. And again, it's all about later on. It's all about what happens. So here she is, 35, 40 years old. She has 3 beautiful children. Beautiful children. She loves those children every single day. She loves them. But in the back of her mind, that weight that she has, if only I would have had that child. See, you never hear those stories, and they're out there. I hear them. I hear pro-life women, and there's a lot more pro-life women than the mass media lets us out to be. And they think about that every single day, and it breaks their heart. And I pray for those people so often that it's just such a heavy burden for them to carry. But they're raising great children. They're great mothers. But we have to think about that, and we have to make sure we do everything we can to save every single life. Every life matters. And that starts at conception. And I want everybody to hear me when I say that. I believe it. And as a father and a grandfather, I don't think you're going to see me backing down from that very soon.
Yeah. Now, because of the Supreme Court's decision year before last or 3 years ago, the Dobbs decision, so it's primarily back to the states. Now, the left has already been organized, and so they're already making inroads in a lot of the states. And even though we've had a pro-life movement for a long time, doesn't seem to me like they were quite ready for it at the state level. And so I don't know, at the federal level, since it's been left to the states, what kind of things, what do you have in mind in terms of that? I mean, obviously you could prevent any kind of federal funding, or you could fight against any kind of federal funding that supported abortion or that promoted life.
Right. Well, I'd mentioned one on there, Dave, and that is the programs that offer the ultrasounds. It's hard not to think we can't find a way to offer this to every woman that would love an ultrasound, just to make sure before they make that decision that they see that baby. And I think that would to me, that would change a lot of paths, right? But I believe, and they have a great way of branding it, is healthcare. We don't have it as child care, and I think it is child care. So I'll be very clear. I know that it should have never gone to the federal level. We all know that. It is a state decision. How we deal with that is a state decision, not a federal decision. And then the media, they say no more health care for women, no more health care. It's gone, and they protract that message on the masses, even though it's 100% false. Tennessee, every state provides health care for women, no matter what we do. Now, abortions, it's a hard stance. There's those other states that offer abortions right up until and I won't even say this out loud, it's hard for me to fathom that a state would offer an abortion up to birth. I mean, it's even hard to repeat, just to be honest with you. If you're going to make that decision, not in Tennessee. I'm sorry, not in Tennessee. Tennessee cannot be an abortion state. It just can't be. People say, well, John, what about the life of the mother or the life of the child? In my experience, almost every woman will take the chance of giving that baby life over their own. But you're not a woman, John. I didn't say I was, and never will say I was. I'm pretty clear on what I am. But the choice cannot be Tennessee. We cannot be an abortion state. We just can't. So I look forward to having that continue. I want to hear from Tennesseans, and that's why I'm in early. Again, I told you, Dave, I want to hear from every Tennessean. I want to know what their thoughts are. I want to be able to talk to women that have a deep conviction about this. What are our options? And again, as I said, I'm running as a representative, not as a dictator, I'm as a representative of the people. And I truly believe that abortion is not a Tennessee issue. It's not. Abortions cannot be here in Tennessee. If you're going to have an abortion, it should be a well thought out decision. If you're going to do that, it's going to have to be in another state. But again, we'll come back to this again and again. I know we will over the 14 months. I know where my convictions rest because I've lived it. I have children. I have a grandchild. I know it. But I want to have this conversation, continue to have it, and see if my ethics and my morals aren't the same ethics and morals of everyone in Tennessee District 6.
Okay. Second Amendment.
Yes, sir. Oh boy.
So now I want to hear what's your opinion. Why do we have the Second Amendment? I want to hear it in your words.
Well, we know that the Second Amendment came about when we needed the Second Amendment. And I'll be honest with you, we need it just as bad today, right? Our founding fathers knew there had to be a Second Amendment because the government get too big, could get too strong, and then what do? Right? We were at the time we were fighting a king in another country to have our rights, and the way we did that, we bore arms, and we bore arms this very day. Thank goodness for people who will stand up. I need everyone listening now. Do not be silent on the Second Amendment. I've been to other countries where they can't have weapons. I've been to other countries where they can't defend themselves. They're herded like cattle. They cannot have weapons. They cannot have arms. And if they do, they're punished severely. We cannot be a country like that. Listen, I don't care what kind of weapon you have. If you got a cannon in your front yard, roger that, you got a cannon. I don't think you're going to be robbing a liquor store with a cannon. The thing is, we see the left, we see anti-gun, anti-freedom every single place we go, everywhere we look. We think that these shootings that go on are happen by, I guess they think guns walk in and hold people up. We really got to be clear. I will talk more about mental health as a veteran, and you know it, Dave, as a veteran, PTSD is a real thing, right? There are issues there. We need to worry about mental health. The Second Amendment was there not to keep people from having arms. We understand that. It's to give people arms to defend themselves very clearly. I am a Second Amendment guy. As a Marine, I think everybody should own weapons. We saw it happen when people don't own weapons, and we saw it up in Minnesota. And I hate to use that example. I hate for her to be an example. That person was, we know a couple of weeks ago, was dressed up as an undercover, or I'm sorry, as a policeman, and killed one of our congressmen.
Right.
Our Second Amendment rights, when you come to our door, you need to be a little bit squeamish on what's on the other side of that door. I'm just being honest with you, brother. We need to defend our property. We need to defend ourselves. There it is on there. I'm all about this Second Amendment. I'll continue to be, because I think a well-armed citizenry is what it's all about, right? We know that. We see that. We need to defend ourselves. And you'll hear me say this a couple of times, Dave. We defend ourselves from enemies, both foreign and domestic.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing it over and over again. Our domestic enemies, who's come in our country over the last 4 years? Do we know, Dave? Do we know that we have these cells? You mentioned it earlier. What's Iran's response?
Right.
Well, we better be ready, because over the last 4 years, if 15 to 20 million did come in, did we properly vet them? The answer is no. Again, looking in retrospect, we know what we're dealing with. And we have to defend ourselves at this critical time, just like we did 250 years ago, Dave. I truly believe that.
Yeah. So you have to be able to defend yourself, and you have to be able to defend your community. You have to be able, the Second Amendment, it was not primarily about self-defense. It was actually about being able to defend against a tyrannical government. I mean, that's what this country was founded on, was defending against a tyrannical government. And we had the same type of weapons. In some cases, we had better and more accurate weapons than what the British had at the time. So we kind of get to the other question here. In your opinion, should there be a limit on the type of weapon that we can have in terms of rifles, machine guns, whatever?
I haven't seen a limit. I'm trying to figure out what a limit would be. You can't have military grade, as you can't have a M249 saw that you just put the hammer down and blow rounds down range. That military grade doesn't happen. I mean, semi-automatic, people talk about automatic weapons. Define automatic weapon. You and I know an automatic weapon is not one where you take your finger and every time you pull the trigger. I mean, sure, that's not an automatic weapon. Every time you pull a trigger, an automatic weapon is an automatic weapon. That's where the pin is where a 249 saw, we see the 249 or M240 Golf 7.62.
Right.
That's military grade weapons.
Well, no,
However,
let me clarify now. Are you saying that we should not have access to those, or that we should?
No, honestly, I would love to have a 240 Golf. I'll be honest with you. I think that's one of the best machine guns. I was an A gunner and a gunner when I was a young one for a 240 Golf. If I want a 240 Golf here, I don't mind having a 240 Golf. Now you let your cities and whatever, but I don't put regulations on people. Like
Okay.
none.
Okay. So I mean, I think we should be able to have it. If the military has it, we should be able to have it. Okay. Now,
Yes.
I'm not talking chemicals and biological. All right. That's a little different ball game there. But when you're talking, like you mentioned, hey, we had private armies at the time early on in our founding. Okay. When you hear about let's see, what is it? Letters of marque and reprisal. Well, those were often private armies or private individuals that were allowed by the government to go and, let's say, attack the British or whatever. Uh, I think we should not be limited. This idea that only the government should have fully automatic weapons, I think I don't think that's right. I think the citizens should have them as well. That's my opinion.
Right, and let's clarify that. And I think if a group of people want to get together and fire that 240 Golf machine gun or that 249 saw because it's their personal weapons, I think they should be able to do that, not be monitored and handcuffed and thrown in jail because some kind of city regulation came up. And I think that could be a problem. All these radical leftists are worried about militia this, militia that. Oh, come on now. Look what we have. We have an organized militia called Antifa,
Absolutely.
carrying people, running people around, and you won't let us defend ourselves from that. So we've gone a little too far. Let me hit this because, Dave, it's affected you and I in our military careers, and that's that red flag law.
Yep.
Tennessee tried to push that red flag law on us.
Bill Lee.
When I talked about enemies to foreign and domestic, I'll tell you, I lived the red flag law in the Marine Corps. If a spouse made a allegation
Yep.
that the Marine pushed her up against the door,
Oh yeah.
they fell underneath the red flag law.
Same thing in the
And so-
Army.
Yes.
Yep.
And so they tried to bring that to Tennessee. When all the findings of fact come out and the base lawyer deals with it, she retracts her statement because it didn't happen. Well, you've already ruined a Marine's career now. And so I've lived red flags law. So when you talk red flags law or these types of weapons that they want to keep us from having, there's a reason they want to keep us from having. And for me, the government to have a healthy fear of its citizens is a free country.
Yeah.
And when you're not afraid of the citizens, you could have a tyrannical government on your hands.
A fearful government is a healthy government.
As President Reagan would say, the government is the problem.
Yep.
Right? Clearly.
Absolutely. Anything else on Second Amendment?
Well, I think it's very clear. I'm a hunter. I was NRA member back when I was a young boy. My grandfather paid my subscription. I've always been NRA, protecting any organization that protects our right to own weapons and reduce as many regulations when it comes to owning weapons. I'm for them. So if you hear me out there and you want me to be a member and I can find you, I'm all about joining anybody that protects our right to bear arms.
Well, in Tennessee, you need to be talking to Tennessee Firearms Association. That's Jon Harris, the founder, and West Tennessee Director Richard Archie. So you definitely need to have a conversation with them. And normally they do surveys during elections. I don't know if they do them in special elections, but I would definitely recommend you talk to them in reference because they are the only no compromise gun rights organization in the state of Tennessee. I'm a member as well and part of the local chapter. So I definitely recommend that to you.
Thank you, sir. We'll make sure that we connect. Yep.
Okay. So supporting the blue, that's what you have as your last issue.
Yep. I think this is important, right? I think there should be certain laws when you spit on, when you kick, when you punch. And here's the thing. You and I again saw this on January 6th, right? People stayed inside those ropes going into the Capitol. You only had a few deviants that we still don't know because that 14 was it 14,000 hours of recording on
Yeah,
J6?
something like that, some crazy amount.
Right. And so we didn't get to see all the peaceful people that just walked through. Instead, they took pictures of them and put them in jail. I got to meet 2 J6ers, Dave, and it was incredible. One of them did 2 tours in Afghanistan, brother, but he was just there. No abuse, no anything. It was in jail for 4 years. Another one, married, came to his house with his wife and son, in jail for 3 years.
Yeah.
But yet we have Antifa, who is physically assaulting our policemen, our first responders. Listen, this has to stop. The media is, you can see in these areas, are our enemy. They only show one side of the story. There's many names they need to remember, and it's not the few that you keep hearing. You need to hear about Captain Dorn, who all he did was doing on those riots, the Summer of Love in 2020, was a retired police captain, was protecting his friend's store, was shot and killed. Those are the names we need to remember, not these deviants out there acting like they can rule the world and the media is taking up for them. These are enemies of the state. And when they abuse the blue, and when media, when they defame, when they put down, we need to do something about this. So if the media would like to do something, how about take care of the people that back us, the blue, the real people? And Dave, you and I know where most of those people come from. Military. They get out after their 4 years, and they want to be able to serve, and they don't want to be assaulted. They don't want to be spit on or things thrown at just for doing their job. So we need to make sure, even at the point where we're using our people in blue or the Homeland Security, all those people, to round up these illegal immigrants. When people attack them, when people assault them, they need to go to jail. Just like that they were treated, the peaceful protesters, the true peaceful protesters on J6. It needs to be handled swiftly. And I truly believe this, Dave. We can't let these people get out of the military just wanting to serve their country only to be abused. We can't stand for that.
Well, now, so this kind of works both ways, though. I mean, there's not everybody who is technically blue who should be blue, who has any reason near a badge and a gun. And I think we saw some of those people in reference to J6 in D.C., some of those Capitol Police just beating innocent people. I mean, I had a J6er on Colton McAbee a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about that. And these are people. So, and I understand I come from not only a military family, but my dad was a county sheriff. My aunt was a deputy, so I'm certainly not anti-cop. But I can tell you that there are a lot of cops who have no business being cops. And I think it's just like in the military, when you have a senior NCO or an officer that does something that's just really out there, really wrong. I mean, hey, that's not something that you normally hear. They need to pay a high price. Same thing with these people that, I'll say, tarnish the badge, so to speak. And I think we have a lot of those people at the Capitol. And I think there are some people we need to screen a little better in some cases. But yes, I mean, I do respect the police. They do have a hard job. I don't want to paint them with that broad brush in either way. I don't want to say just because they're blue that they're good, or certainly not that, well, they're all bad by any means. But I just that's just my thought on it, because when I think about J6 and I think about other things that I've heard that go on, in some cases we need a little higher standard.
Good point. You and I both have served with the 1%ers, right? They should not be there. They shouldn't have worn a uniform.
Yeah.
It happens almost in everything, right? You see it
absolutely.
With your occupation. There's just a higher price to pay when you get someone that's toxic like that. Yeah. And so we still haven't seen anyone. I mean, has the police officer who shot the young lady in the Capitol, has he ever been prosecuted? Has he ever spent a day in jail?
He promoted and rewarded. Rewarded, yeah. I like to say professions are honorable, people not so much.
Yeah, very good point. And you and I both know it probably is not even 1%. If you look across this nation and how many people serve with that badge, it's probably not even 1%. I mean, I've got them in my family. I've got a nephew who served in the Marine Corps 4 years, a big old horse of a guy. He's now working as a security officer, and if something happened to him, I'd be the first one to be there, brother. I don't think I'd have to be. He is as big as a house. But I'll tell you what, those are the people you and I think of in our families, and it's just like military. They're in our families. They need to be protected the same way that they protect us.
Yeah, absolutely. So have we missed anything? You got any closing thoughts, anything that you want to go back over or bring up initially?
Well, I do. I tell people, as I said the other day, I was in Sumner County. Sumner County is not the average county, and I spoke to them about some things that we're a little bit deficient in Tennessee. Our rural counties, again, I serve the most rural district. The 6th district is the most rural, so a lot of my focus is on some of these rural counties, these poor counties. Some of our counties right now, we're working. They have ambulances that have 300,000, 500,000 miles. We have families. I'd give an example of, they called 911. And while their family member was laying there, it took over 50 minutes for them to respond because they don't have the the paramedics and the EMTs that they need. And again, these are rural counties, I understand, but we need to look at that. We need to make sure that we understand how we can help these communities. Can I do something as their congressman to help with that? And there's a number of different things I and my team are talking to state and county officials to see how we can to work that out. Why do EMTs? Why are we lacking EMTs in these rural areas? What do we need to do to get more ambulances in some of these counties? This is very important for us, and it reaches out. We know that Social Security, we just found out earlier last week, something you and I and all your listeners knew, that Social Security is running out, and they're expecting it to run out by 2034. Pretty significant, right?
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, and we know that the trust fund that helps us with our Medicare medical bills is also due to completely run out by 2033. Now, again, I have to look at my whole district here. There's some poor areas that live and breathe with Social Security and Medicare. And these are things that as a congressman, I have to address. I have to understand that these local governments need help. And what can I do as a congressman to help them? And so I'm going to go out with some, as I just said, some leaders in the community and the state, and I look to address this. I look to see where some of the you had mentioned it earlier, some of the funds are going. They're not going to the right place. I need to help. And something else I need to do as a district. We have a lot of county mayors here that just get these unfunded mandates. They get things pushed down on them. This is what's going to happen. So in our case, Nashville says they're going to do it. You're going to make this happen. But they don't send the funds to make it happen. And so these small town mayors are like, you're killing us down here. You're making these mandates and you're not funding them. And so now I have to pull from here. Now we're wondering why our roads are getting worse in rural areas. Worse and worse. We worry about things like these ambulances and these EMTs and these people, these first responders that we need. We need help in these volunteer fire departments and things of that nature. So these are just a number of things. I've got a lot more, but I'll be honest with you. I look forward to coming back on here with you again after we've been doing the campaign for a while and getting smart on these issues, Dave. Getting smart and understanding what means the most to the people of the 6th district.
And gladly have you back. Let me listen to some of what you've said about the different issues.
Yes.
A lot of these things are primarily, or at least should be, state issues. So I'm kind of curious, what led you to decide to run for federal office versus state office?
Well, because of my federal experience, right? As a Marine, you're at a federal level. You're carrying out Congress and the president. They make military policies.
Right.
I've seen it's done. As a Desert Storm veteran, I tell people we went over. We did exactly what the president said. We got the Iraqi forces out of Kuwait, and we were really ready to head. Marines, well, soldiers as well, were headed to Baghdad. And the president said, "Stop." And 8 months later, he said, "You're headed home." Our coalition said, "Get them out and come home." So that's what we did. But then 9/11 happened, Dave, and you and I are in two 20-year wars.
Yep.
I mean, if that's not federal experience, I don't know what is. That's direct policy by our congressmen, our Senate, our executive branch, right? So I think that's where I get my experience from, and that's why it's a federal position I'm seeking for the 6th district and not a local. I haven't run for local office. We've got a great county mayor here And I see county mayors as I go across all 19 of our counties. They're good people. They're engaged with their people. I still feel I'm on a federal level as a Marine serving for 27 years at that federal level. I just think that, as I said earlier, we're ready to bring some of those policies to fruition and put a federal military mindset to it and make things like that work. And that's why I said that earlier was I'm running for a federal seat and not a state seat.
Okay. Let me throw this at you in reference to Social Security, because I'm 60 and I'm not necessarily holding my breath that I'm going to see it. But here's a thought, and I don't know if this has been pitched. I'm sure variations of it have. There are probably a lot of people like myself that are getting close to Social Security age. But you know what? We'd take a buyout. We would absolutely take a buyout. Now, obviously, that wouldn't be 100% of what I've paid in over the years, but I'd be, it's got to be worthwhile. But that might be one way to salvage Social Security, extend it, whatever, however you want to look at it, is find out, okay, who would be willing? And then you phase it out for the younger people, after whatever. And I'm just throwing this number out there. This may not be let's say if you're 45 and, we're going to start taking less of your Social Security out so that you can invest more of that, and so you can expect to get less from us. I just think there's things you could do that people would be willing to do, rather than just assume that we have to fund everybody who is or will be eligible for Social Security in the next several years, because we're not going to have the money. It's going to go broke. So I would rather get something for what I've paid in rather than nothing. And here's another thing, just as a reminder. A lot of people think Social Security is a retirement fund, and that's the way it was sold. It's just another tax. That's all it is another tax. It was sold as a retirement fund by FDR, the socialist president, but it was always a tax.
Yeah, you said it well, and my grandmother said she would have, if FDR would have lived, she would have voted for him again. I'm like, no, I know now. I'm like, whoa, holy cow! But that was the mindset, right?
Right.
That was back then. That was the mindset. But you and I both know, as soon as Social Security is collected, it's spent by our wasteful government.
Yep.
And so I just think there's other things that I think of. If we just, and you've heard this, people draw on Social Security that have been, 130 years old. And you can just go on with the fraud and mismanagement of money, the Social Security fraud, the Medicaid fraud, all those mishandled funds.
Yep.
It's probably my main theme, and that's accountability. It's got to be, funds have to be accounted for. And you said it, it's a tax. It just carries over and carries over and carries over. So what we've done for my grandma, she's been passed for, quite a while now, almost 2 decades. But for her, FDR promised her, this is a retirement fund for you. You'll have it. And so the government made a promise that in the end they couldn't keep. And we're seeing that as the funds get smaller and smaller. So if we could, I want to follow Donald Trump on this. I do believe that his team has a plan. I want to see what that plan is. I'm not going to follow it blindly, not as a 6th district representative, but I want to get smart on this, and I want to find out what we can do to get rid of the mismanagement, the proper appropriation of funds. I just think when Doge came out and some of those numbers, we quickly forgot some of those numbers. But you don't. If you depend on Social Security, maybe you didn't, as you and I planned for retirement, you didn't plan for retirement. So what do we do now? You and I both know they're going to have medical expenses. They're going to have other expenses that you and I will eventually end up paying.
Yep.
So we have to do something. We can't sit idle by. And I look forward to getting smart on this and really, really driving some of the main points on this of fraud, waste, and abuse.
Well, hey, thank you for being with us. Good luck on the campaign trail. Definitely love to have you back. Good luck to you. I'd like to see a former senior enlisted, even if you are a Marine, in the Congress. I think that'd be great. Absolutely. Then you could have your vice president say, "Good morning, Sergeant Major," and I could say, "Good morning, Corporal." Well, hey, thanks again for being with us, and good luck to you. Take care out on the trail. I want to thank the audience for taking the time to watch our program tonight. Please be sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons as well as the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe, so please take a second and click the subscribe button and share us with your friends. Check out our audio podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and other platforms as well. Sign up for our weekly newsletter at our website, TN.Informer.com. Please find and follow us on Facebook and X. Have a couple of announcements. Grassroots Workshop, How to Mobilize the Conservative Vote and Win Elections, sponsored by the TFA, Tennessee Firearms Association, but you don't have to be a member to attend. It's $10 per from 1 to 5 p.m. Saturday, June 28th at Buttrey Wedding and Event Venue, 14651 Highway 424. That's 14651 Highway 424, Yuma, Tennessee. Brett Rogers, author and activist, will be the speaker. If you have questions, call Richard Archie of TFA fame, by the way, 731-217-0134. Constitutional Sheriff's Training online every Thursday in July at 7 p.m. Central. Know what your sheriff should know. Find out more about it, TennesseeConservativeNews.com. This Thursday, we will have a special show at 7 p.m. featuring Representative Monty Fritz as he joins us to give us an update on Pray for Tennessee and other issues of concern. Then on Monday, the 30th, don't miss our discussion with John Birch Society constitutional expert Joe Wolverton, here to discuss the American Revolution. It was about a lot more than taxes. Hope you'll join us again next time. That's it for now. Good night from Parris, Tennessee, that is.